For the past 2 years, we have been creating Star Wars videos and, of course, we are constantly reading your comments. And all these 5 wonderful years, we've noticed how Star Wars fans, that is, many of you, really want Disney and Lucasfilm to cancel the sequel trilogy, recognize it as non-canon, reshoot it, declare it an alternative reality. In short, so that they just destroy it and put everything back in its place. The sequels have disappointed us all so much, and you know, if in 2015 the release of the 7th episode still gave hope for a grandiose sequel, then the 8th and 9th episodes buried these hopes under a dense layer of blue milk. Unfortunately, there are dark times in our beloved universe, and fans still hope that somehow, magically, these dark times will be erased from memory forever. But no. Do you know why? Because Disney and Lucasfilm are trying their best to fix everything, to make sure that fans don't perceive sequels as negatively as before. They will never completely cancel them, but they will try to change the perception of the new trilogy by releasing books, comics, TV series, and games in which the characters of the sequels, especially Luke Skywalker, look good and do more heroic deeds. And in this video, we'll tell you what Disney has done over the past couple of years to justify sequels and what they've done recently. It's not worth remembering the bad moments from the sequels once again. You already remember them perfectly. Blue Milk, the all-powerful Rey, the wretched Palpatine, and much more. And in general, most fans don't like them because of their poor attitude towards the old classic story of the original trilogy. Disney tried to convey the atmosphere of George Lucas's films, but for some reason they decided that fans would probably like the obvious degradation of all the main characters. Probably the main reason for the fans' discontent is that the good old characters of the original trilogy were exposed as helpless ragamuffins who lost and drank everything they had so that the new characters would look more expressive against their background. But no, obviously it didn't work the way Disney wanted it to. And so literally in every new project, a legendary hero or villain appears, who will surely be exposed as decrepit and incapable of anything. Naturally, fans want to forget this whole nightmare and wish that Disney and Lucasfilm would erase it from history. You may be surprised, but they are not going to cancel the sequels. On the contrary, they call Rey the biggest asset and believe that it is her story that should be developed. We're not saying all this from a position of hatred, just a statement of fact. The current leadership of Lucasfilm sees prospects in Rey since she is completely their character and does not carry the legacy of George Lucas. And besides, despite the general indignation of longtime fans, a huge mass of young people like Rey who began their acquaintance with Star Wars in 2015. So stop flattering yourself with hopes of cancelling the new trilogy. Moreover, all the recent series are trying to somehow justify the plot holes of the sequels. If the films themselves are devoid of meaning, then let's try to catch up with this very meaning with a backstory. This is how the bosses of Disney and Lucasfilm think. That's why, over the past 6 years, we've been watching the storyline in The Mandalorian, Bad Batch, and Ahsoka slowly approach the birth of Supreme Leader Snoke, the formation of a new republic with a helpless Senate and army, and the emergence of the infamous First Order. Needless to say, even the Starkiller base on the snow-covered planet from the 7th episode, it turns out, was built on the legacy of Ilum, which for thousands of years was a place of accumulation of kyber crystals, and on this planet, the young Jedi designed the first lightsabers. This plot twist was shoved into the Fallen Order game. I mean, you know, Disney and Lucasfilm are doing everything they can to justify the new Star Wars trilogy, so that after a decade, fans will look at the big picture and say, okay, but it seems to make some sense. Now, let's talk about the most painful thing, about Luke Skywalker, who was completely disgraced in the 8th episode, so much so that Mark Hamill himself did not hold back in an interview and openly expressed his dissatisfaction. Obviously, they have lowered the legendary hero to the very tomatoes, but as soon as fans disorganized their own rebellion around the world, Disney decided to take a different path and began to show Luke more often the way everyone wanted to see him. More precisely, what he was supposed to be, and what he had already become earlier in the expanded universe when Star Wars still belonged to Lucas. The company began to actively produce various books and comics in which Skywalker Jr. showed himself at his best. He was strong, agile, smart, resourceful, and even wise, like a real Jedi Master. In addition to literature, Luke also appeared on screens 3 times, in The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, and in the story campaign of the game Battlefront 2. Probably the Disney bosses were so stressed out because of the negative reaction of fans to the 8th episode and decided, here's a good Luke for you, here's another good Luke, and another good Luke. Keep as much good Lukes as you can. Going along with the audience is not always right, of course, but in the case of Skywalker Jr., it is justified. Moreover, all these book materials are really interesting, so I strongly advise you to read at least one of them. Well, you probably remember the recent news that Disney wants to bring Luke's wife, Mara Jade, back into the new Star Wars canon, and according to rumors, she should appear in one of the projects of the distant future. They're even starting to partially accept the old canon, just to keep the fans happy. And more recently, Luke Skywalker's name has once again topped the news headlines and has once again become the center of heated debate. There is such a colorful place in California called Disneyland, and in this theme park, the company built a large corner dedicated to Star Wars and called it Galaxy Edge, in which they exhibited a life-size Millennium Falcon. Cosplayers who look very much like their characters work there full-time, and basically Disney only put their own characters there. But just the other day, they suddenly hired a new cosplayer who would play Luke Skywalker from the time of The Mandalorian and at the same time assigned the droid R2-D2 to him. The company dedicated a separate video to this event with the description, "The legendary Jedi Luke Skywalker returns to continue his father's way." It's only now that Disney has begun to realize that you can't ignore Lucas's legacy and promote only your own patently unsuccessful characters. That's commendable. Half of the fans reacted positively to Luke's appearance in Galaxy Edge, and the other half began to actively tease the company for calling a cosplayer with blue milk on his beard because this is their favorite character. But seriously, there's no way to cancel the failed sequels, you can forget about it. But there are some positive aspects to this whole story. No, not in the films themselves. For a long time, Disney tried to pretend that nothing critical had happened. Everything was fine, but after a few years, they finally realized that their chosen policy for the development of Star Wars was dragging the universe to the bottom. So they came to their senses and changed their priorities. Therefore, more and more often in new projects, you can see the same Luke Skywalker as we saw him in the 6th episode, as he returned to The Mandalorian and Boba Fett's book, and as he was in the cult game Jedi Academy. They finally understood the direction in which Star Wars should move. They won't cancel the sequels, but maybe the current situation has helped them draw the right conclusions that will positively affect the future of all Star Wars. Write your opinion in the comments, like the video if you were interested in it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That's all for today. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you.